This video is a response to a video response to me made by BigLundi in the description box. So, as my bionic dance would say, let's do this.
Firstly, to address the comments that you addressed to me while I was explaining to you how open to interpretation doesn't equate falsity.
I never said open to interpretation equates to falsity. Here's what your food analogy means versus what mine means. Yours states that food exists and it's alright for two people to have different interpretations on how to serve it. Mine states that food exists and there is only one way to serve it because the food itself said so. I can't ask the food how to serve it because the food is invisible and I can't find it, or it resides outside this reality. So I don't know how to serve the food, so I ask two people that claim they do how I'm supposed to serve it. They tell me different ways to serve it, but each claims their way tells me that that's the way the food wants to be served. This is what that means for Christianity.
One of them could be right. The only thing that's required when two people put forth a mutually exclusive definition is that one of them is wrong. Not necessarily that they are both wrong.
One of them is right and one of them is wrong. Both might be wrong or whatever. Doesn't enter the equation. Neither of them knows if either of them is right or wrong is the point.
You did declare Theo to be many evil things and then called us sympathizers.
Yes, I called you a sympathizer because you are. So am I. I'm sympathetic to a lot of things. You're sympathetic to Christianity. There is Theo Warner and there is Theo Warner the Christian. There is you and there is you the sympathizer. Theo may be a great guy, but Theo the Christian is a genocidal, child-murdering monster. You may be a great guy, but your sympathy toward Christians makes you sympathetic to genocidal, child-murdering monsters. There are many things worth being sympathetic toward. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are none of those things.
You called us Nazi, child molesting, child murdering, white supremacist sympathizers.
No, I never called you, CV, or Theo Warner any of those things. Telling you you are sympathetic toward Christianity is not calling BigLundi the person a racist. It is calling you BigLundi the sympathizer, sympathetic toward that Christian/racist views. But because you believe interpretation of the Bible is allowed, you are simply unaware you are. As for Theo Warner the individual, I'm sure he's a swell guy. What is Theo Warner the Christian? They're separate. If Christianity vanished tomorrow, Theo Warner would go on fine. If Theo Warner vanished tomorrow, Christianity would be hunky-dory. So what do you get when you combine Theo Warner and Christianity? You get a Christian. And what is a Christian? I explained this in greater detail in my video, Cardinal Virtues Half Gets It, and that's a good thing. It's in the description box. But to summarize, look at the story of Abraham and Isaac. God ordered Abraham to butcher Isaac. Abraham went to follow those orders. One interpretation of the meaning of that story, do what I order. That would be the God talking. How does this relate to a Nazi? During many of their trials for crimes against humanity, Nazis gave the defense I was just following orders, as a Christian must. Now you may say the actual interpretation of the Abraham-Isaac story is for humans not to murder or something. If you believe that is a valid direction to take, then ultimately, neither of us knows what the Abraham-Isaac story is actually saying, and both interpretations are equally valid or equally false, or one is true and the other false. How do you determine? Well, you can't ask Abraham or Isaac because they were hearing voices in their heads. So you must ask the voice. But the voice is invisible or lives outside this reality. So you're screwed. So we must come to a consensus on the story to know what Christianity is. That means one of a couple things. Stating that interpretation is not allowed in Christianity and picking something, or stating that interpretation is allowed but only certain people are allowed to interpret, thus excluding my interpretation. In the video I committed an error by using the word literally in the wrong place, with baby killer and Nazi. That was a mistake, a typo. It was unintentional. I just didn't catch it. For a Christian to be a literal Nazi, they must be a member of the Nazi party. To be a literal baby murderer, they must have murdered a baby. But as my interpretation of the Abraham and Isaac story shows, a Christian would murder a baby if ordered to. The person is separate from the belief. Remember, if Christianity vanished tomorrow, Theo Warner would go on fine. If Theo Warner vanished tomorrow, Christianity would be hunky-dory. When a person adopts the mantle of Christian, they become an entity distinct. Now, racism in Christianity. An interpretation of the Christian God is that it is racist, that it has chosen the Jews over all others, the chosen ones, that it has told the Jews they can enslave all others, that it has committed genocide and ordered the Jews to commit genocide in the Jews' favor, that for you to worship this God, if you are not a Jew, you must accept your extermination if it is so decided. To be a Christian, you must believe this. If you believe this, you are literally a racist, and that has nothing to do with what you and CV might be. And please don't tell me, but not all Christians interpret the Bible that way. I'm seriously hoping you're getting what I'm actually saying. Now for superstition.
What I was getting at when I was talking about superstition and what was bad about it was what Theo was getting at when you declared that superstition was bad. What is it about superstition that is intrinsically bad?
Let's see what BigLundi is referring to here from the comments on that page. Well, you never talked about what is intrinsically bad about superstition. For instance, you kept giving things that superstition causes as being bad without ever explaining why superstition itself is bad. I explained to him. I did answer all these. I said superstition is bad because it is a negative. It isn't true. Ignoring the "it isn't true" part, as he also did in his video, he goes on to say, superstition is bad because it's a negative, so it's a tautology. Superstition is bad because it is bad. I mean, come on, Billzy, that's silly.
Defining superstition as a negative is a useless tautology.
As he continued to go with in his video.
So the bad thing about superstition is that it's bad.
No, the bad thing about superstition, as I said, is that it is a negative. It is not true. And then comes this next bit.
After I caught you on this extremely sophomoric response and approach, someone else decided to try and help you out by declaring that it's also that superstition isn't true.
No, he wasn't trying to help me out. He was trying to help you out. But if you had understood, the result would have helped me out by extension. Since you continue on this line of reasoning, despite his good intentions, he helped neither of us. BigLundi went on to write this. Superstition is a negative in the sense it doesn't exist. Are you even aware you're declaring the characters in all anime a negative, or cartoons, or any other fiction? I was assuming that BigLundi and I had the same definition of what superstition is when I replied to that. Do you believe the characters in anime exist? Are cartoon characters superstition? Is that what you're saying? Fiction is not superstition. Star Wars isn't considered real by anyone. He gave me, you just declared superstition is bad because it is not true. I demonstrated there are things that aren't true that aren't bad. Please reformulate your reason for declaring superstition to be intrinsically bad or just stop. I responded, wow. How you got superstition is bad because it is not true means everything that isn't real is bad is beyond me. He said, you declared superstition to be bad. Why is it bad? Because it's not true. Therefore, the property of not true is defined by you as being bad. Therefore, all fiction is bad. This is what's called an argumentum ad absurdum, demonstrating the silliness of your argument by taking it to absurd logical conclusions. No, I said superstition is bad because it's not true. If it's not a superstition and it's not true, it's not included. He went on with, if superstition is bad because it is not true, then all untrue things are bad. He brought up the example of pranks. That when you prank someone, tell someone you have something in your room for them and you actually don't. That is bad because they believed a false thing. And because they believed a false thing, that is superstition. I told him fooling people is not superstition because you have already defined it as a prank, fooling them. He continued, but you define superstition as something that is not true that people believe, and pranks fall under that definition. So that means you need to redefine what superstition means. I told him the definition of superstition is a false thing that is not true but believed to be true. But the definition of all false things is not superstition. Superstition is a false thing thought true, but not all false things are thought true, so they are excluded from the words superstition is bad because it is false. Pranking someone is not superstition because it is defined as a prank, not as superstition. To do something, you must perform an action. To prank, you must do something. The fooling of someone is the prank, not their realization they've been pranked, and not your knowledge that is what you were doing. In his video, which came after the comments exchange, he goes on to say,
and by arguing that superstition was bad because it's a negative and not true and believed to be true, you would have to declare pranks morally bad as well. What was your response to that? Pranks aren't bad because they're not superstition. And the problem with that response should be so self-evident that I shouldn't even have to say the word circular reasoning.
He then asked me if I'm retarded. Alright, I'll try explaining it again. Thanks to Socrates 856, my two favorite words now are signifier and signify. A signifier being a concept in someone's mind, and that concept is being applied to the signified, to define it. Let's explore superstition using Kermit the Frog as the signified. Kermit is a puppet. We'll concern ourselves with only one signifier for Kermit the puppet at this moment, its existence. The only truth or false statement that can be applied to Kermit is that he exists or he doesn't exist. We know Kermit the puppet exists because we've seen it. In math terms, that would be 1 + 1 = 2. Replace Kermit the puppet in this analogy with Yahweh the God. The truth statement for it would be Yahweh the God does not exist. 1 + 1 = 2. No superstition involved yet. Returning Kermit the puppet into the analogy, you can now add other signifiers to Kermit the puppet. I believe it's true that when Sesame Street goes off, Kermit leaves work under his own power and goes home to Miss Piggy for dinner and a night on the town in the swamp. In math terms, that would be 1 + 1 = 5. That second signifier is superstition. Concerning Yahweh the God, it would be Yahweh wants me to rid the world of disease. 1 + 1 = 5. Why is it bad? Because it is false. Why is the answer to the math problem 1 + 1 = 5 bad? Because it is false. The only reason superstition is bad is in the terms of the math problem. It's simply a bad answer. That is its intrinsic badness. Imagine there are people out there that believe 1 + 1 = 5 is true. That makes what they believe superstition. Now replace the word superstition with that form of 1 + 1 = 5 in all your arguments against me. That should clear it up. You mentioned pranks, so let's look at pranks now. Object of the prank? To fool someone toward a humorous end. The second you stop performing the prank, you've defined it as a prank. Superstition? Its objective isn't to fool anyone. It is believed true. They are fooled by it, but that is not a prank. Hence, they are two different things. That is why they have different names. People would say there are good and bad things that come out of superstition. Let's give Kermit another signifier. Kermit also sends out thought waves telling me to kill anyone that does not believe Kermit is in the swamp, and to also love everyone. If that person starts killing, Kermit told them nothing. The superstition had no part in it. If they go around loving, Kermit never told anyone to love. No superstition has ever written a book telling you how to live. No superstition knows how you are to live. It is all human projection. You can interpret a human's projection onto a superstition in any way you like, but it all comes down to what the humans that wrote it were and what those humans interpreting their words are.
This is what I really hate about people like you, about people like Bionic Dance. Never once do you even consider the notion in your videos that you might be wrong.
Wrong. Wrong about a superstition, about people's interpretation of what that superstition is. You're right, I've never considered myself to be wrong about the interpretations of the interpretation of a superstition. Many like you have told me I'm wrong, and that's all you tell me. You can tell me I'm wrong until you're purple in the face. Prove I am. You may want to say that not everything can be proven. Then how can any of you say I'm wrong? Have you considered that? As I already said, proving me wrong means one of a couple things. Stating that interpretation is not allowed in Christianity and picking something, or stating that interpretation is allowed but only certain people are allowed to interpret, thus excluding my interpretation. If interpretation is not allowed, then the Bible is possibly the actual word of Yahweh. It is possibly evidence for Yahweh's existence. But evidence is proof. Yahweh sending evidence would mean that Yahweh wants humanity to know it exists. And if Yahweh wanted humanity to know that, humanity would, period, because that's what Yahweh wants. But humanity does not know this Yahweh exists, because there are multiple religions and multiple denominations of those religions. So Yahweh either doesn't exist or doesn't want humanity to know it exists. If Yahweh doesn't want humanity to know it exists, then there is no evidence on the face of this planet for its existence, not even the Bible. You see, Thea Warner, for you to conclude Yahweh is possibly hiding what it wants from humanity, which the Bible as evidence refutes, you must prove its existence to be able to conclude it has wants to hide. In other words, it would be hiding Christianity from you. So there would be no signified named Christianity. To say God is hiding its wants from us as a refutation of my argument means you just don't understand my argument. All you are saying is that man doesn't know why Yahweh ordered the slicing open of pregnant women because man could never understand Yahweh. But that refutes your own argument because it states you can understand your God's mind to make such a statement. What you must say is that man doesn't understand these things because Yahweh's mind is probably too far above us to understand. You know, make something up. But that does not speak to my argument. My argument refutes the existence of a God outright. The only way for my interpretation to be excluded is for there to be only one religion in the world, Christianity, rendering denominations/interpretations/made-up stuff moot because they wouldn't exist. Yahweh wishes to save all humanity from the torture and hell it destined us due to Adam's sin. It sent Jesus to give us a get-out-of-torture-free card. Yahweh wants humanity to know it exists. Simple as that. Jesus is the evidence Yahweh sent. Jesus is the Bible incarnate. When you read any Christian dogma, text, orthodoxy, whatever you want to call it, you are reading Jesus. Jesus is Christianity. Nothing more, nothing less. A signifier added to the superstition Yahweh. Yahweh sent Christianity/Jesus as its evidence for its existence. A shoddy job for an omniscient and omnipotent God. Therefore, to cling to their Yahweh fantasy, Christians must admit to one of two things. Their God is an idiot, or that their God is neither omniscient nor omnipotent.
You never once stand back and go, maybe this guy has a point. And in your video that I commented on, where I had thought that you finally did that because you decided to start reading philosophy books, you refused adamantly to give credit to the guy that brought the notion that you ought to read more into the public forum in the first place. That is what pissed me off.
That pissed you off. Okay, as I told you, Theo Warner didn't give me my new interest in philosophy. Other people's comments to him did. You see, if those people hadn't commented, I'd have never known how great philosophy is. Theo had nothing to do with it. You may want to say if it hadn't been for Theo, those comments would have never occurred. Then I should thank myself, because if I had never responded to Theo's video, the comments would never have occurred. You may want to go back another step. Okay. The next chance I get, I'll thank my parents for my new interest in philosophy books. In closing, you asked if I'd like to Skype. As I told CV, name the date and time. And this is a lot of stuff, so I have uploaded a transcript of this video at the link in the description box below if anyone would like to read it.